Welcome back to Purposed Audacity.
Surrendering to God, even when things look impossible.
Physically impossible. But when I'm talking about physical, I'm not talking about sight. I'm not talking about the things you're looking around and seeing and you say, all right, boy, God, you're telling me that this needs to happen, but I'm not seeing, I don't see it.
Talking about tithing.
Hey.
Talking about forgiveness.
I must say that like at different points I've had to actively say to God, like, all right, God, like empty me and do them thing there.
And sometimes the opportunity presents itself where you see maybe the person be like, yo, they become remorseful. They're like, why are you doing this when you know I did this wrong to you? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you won't.
Like, how do we actually stay in surrender to God's will when it literally looks physically impossible?
I think the first thing we have to do is
what's up? Welcome back to Purposed Audacity. Can you believe it's season 5 already?
Yeah, man. Episode 1.
Yeah, man. I am Charmian Marie Beadle.
Brian Beadle, as you know.
Yep, and this episode is going to get into some really interesting discourse, if you will.
Why are you frightening the people them before?
I feel like by now they should know that, So. Then again, if this is your first time watching, thank you for joining us. And, we do have 20 plus episodes, waiting for you to listen to.
That's right.
But here on Purpose Audacity, we believe in just talking about some of the very real things that we go through as Christian creatives, and just Christians on a whole, whether you're a CEO or just somebody who loves Jesus. Mm-hmm. And everything surrounding purpose, faith, and expression. And so today, speaking of purpose,
we're gonna talk about surrendering to God even when things look impossible.
Physically impossible.
It's a physically impossible. What do you mean by physically impossible?
That's a good question. Great way to
start. I feel like surrendering to God is already like a heavy thing. So when you say physically impossible, what are you saying? So
generally in life, we speak about physically. Or the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual generally, right? So, spiritual, like when you're in that zone with God and stuff, like, of course, when you're walking in tune with Him and stuff like that, there is a level of, okay, cool, surrender in terms of spiritual moves and nudges, that you receive from God and things. So, it would be spiritually possible or it would feel better spiritually in most respects when God nudges you to do something because you're already in tune and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
In terms of emotionally now, like of course we go through different seasons, we go through different situations and stuff, so that is a thing, but sometimes, especially when you're getting that zone with God and stuff like that, sometimes you indeed can rise up out of that place you're in, that valid season that you're in, or emotion you're in, and then get the thing done. But when I'm talking about physical, I'm not talking about sight. I'm not talking about the things you're looking around and seeing and you say, all right, boy, God, you're telling me that this needs to happen, but I'm not seeing, I don't see it.
And I think a lot of things of the faith in itself, it does take that a physical nature to it, because it's all good and dandy when you read it in the Bible. It's another thing when you have to live that out. We're talking about, I can just name like maybe 3 off the top of my head. Talking about tithing. We're talking about forgiveness. We're talking about...
physically in terms of forgiveness. Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you think about it. Sometimes, and thank you for doing that, because I think a lot of times what we see is that people will have this thing where, in my mind I forgive the person.
Hey, but is the follow-up?
In my heart I forgive the person. But can you go to that person and say, and I mean, it depends on the situation too, because maybe it could be a situation where the person may not even know, right? But depending on the situation, do you go to the person and be like, hey, you know, this happened recently,
Right.
and you know, I never liked how it happened. I forgive you. And you have to physically do that. You have to decide you got to get up in the morning, put on clothes, bathe. You know, you want to smell good when you're forgiving somebody.
Hey, whoa.
And be like, you know, I'm gonna go to this person today and say, hey, I just let you know, I forgive you for this, that. So physically, the fact that you have to, like, I can, there are a lot of people who, you can just imagine, they have anxiety just thinking that they're gonna have to say this to the person. And the truth is, we can only do, we only have control over our action. We don't have no control over their action. So we don't know if they're gonna be like, whoa, you know, wow, I'm so sorry that I did this to you, and or they're gonna be like, alright, pick up yourself. Gonna eat some food now. You know?
So it's funny that you're mentioning that, because I'll be very transparent. Like, that forgiveness vibe and that follow through vibe, like, it's like, you know, it's one of my biggest struggles.
Lord, we call upon you today.
Because and I mean, I know it's a big struggle for a lot of Christians, because the truth is that especially in the past 3 years, you know, I've been through the fire, and I've been through the flood.
Please stop.
And so because of that, I must say that, like, at different points I've had to actively say to God, like, all right, God, like, empty me and do them thing there. So then now, at different points now, I go to the persons and then I say, yo, I release you. You see me? Because for me, when I say I release you, it's not even just a forgiving your brain or whatever. I release you meaning, like, I'm doing my utmost best to, like, get you out of my heart. Because I'm not really interested in a malice thing. But may I tell you honestly, like, especially based on reactions to that action and stuff, and then also, especially if you have to deal with the people in your space or whatever, that physical follow through.
Yeah.
It ain't cute.
So that's what I say, going back to the main point, which is that we may think some of these things are just in our brains, are like, in my heart, I've done this. But there is physical aspects to it. And sometimes we don't know how much release doing the physical thing can do, you know? So I find it very interesting a lot of times when God will call us to do a lot of things, and there must be a physical manifestation of it. Right. Whatever it is that God is asking us to do, whatever it is that the Word of God says that how we should live our life. For example, you're talking about a soft answer turneth away wrath. You're not. How you gonna know that until you physically do it? You know, you're talking about turning the other cheek. How you gonna know that until somebody do something and you decide to let me surrender? He says he is vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. When things happen, do we physically say, all right, I know I have the power to do something to this person physically, but I am going to physically restrain myself because I'm gonna say, all right, Lord, well, you say vengeance is yours. See, there's a scripture that actually talks about how you treat persons who do wrong against you can be like coals on top of their head, fiery coals on top of their head, like being like the person did you bad, but you've decided to consistently do good to them. And sometimes the opportunity presents itself where you see maybe the person be like, yo, they become remorseful. They're like, why are you doing this when you know I did this wrong to you? Sometimes you won't. And I feel like that's a lot of times the thing about surrendering. When we surrender, we may want to see the outcome of surrendering. Like, okay, Lord, I surrender. I gave you.
So what next?
Yeah, I gave you 5 years of my life. You tell me for go on missions. You tell me for do this, do that, evangelize. You tell me for, you know, it comes in twofold. It's just the things that we're supposed to do, like just as Christians, and also the things he's like purposefully said, like he wants you to do. And sometimes in surrendering, we may not see the full-on outcome of this thing.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying, where that's concerned. So the interesting thing is that I want to talk more about, you mentioned tithing earlier, and not even just tithing, but even when the Lord encourages you to invest in a project or to purchase something that would go towards a project that he laid on your heart or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, but then you're looking at it like you're looking down the road and you're there like, sorry Lord, I don't know if you're seeing what we're seeing, but like something is wrong here. So the question is now, like, how do we actually surrender to his will in the midst of when it feels physically impossible? Meaning, so whether it's the forgiveness thing and actually walking that through, whether it's the the maybe investment of finances, or maybe it's the Lord is calling you to move somewhere else, when you don't have a dime in your bank account, and then him say, yo, get the visa, get all the things that you need, and you're like, well, God, I don't know if you know my situation, like, how do we actually stay in surrender to God's will when it literally looks physically impossible?
I think the first thing we have to do is look back on, I call them landmarks, or you could call them monumental moments. You see, a reality of it is that, well, it's two sides to it. Yeah, monumental moments are landmarks, and I think when we remember what God has done before, how he would have come through, because I feel like a lot of times I believe it's like there are levels to the thing, and level by level he's asking you to surrender, and he's showing you something. He's asking you to surrender, and then he's showing you. And sometimes some things will, once you surrender it, you see it immediately. Some things may take a little more time, but you would have gone through different process, different levels of this surrender, and seeing him work in a situation, and seeing the outcome of the situation. And so there is that built up of trust in that. There's a built up of, all right, cool, I've seen him done this before, and that's why when you go through different things in your life, sometimes it's good to keep dates or records or times or something, just to remember that we went through this, I went through this, but at the same time, I went through this, and I can remember when God came through, when I surrendered myself. I surrendered my pride, I surrendered my control, because sometimes even in the whole money situation, sometimes it's like I'm trying to find my own way of getting this and getting that. So it's those surrender stuff, right? And sometimes it can even easily be a situation of maybe you don't have any evidence, maybe you don't have anything to say, I can put it, but that's where you just have faith. Right. And sometimes we think faith will eventually breathe trust, but faith doesn't always require trust.
So it's funny that you mentioned all of that, and I completely agree with you, because I remember last year when we had our New Year's meeting and retreat, when we said, hey, we're gonna start a gratitude box. I'm going to start, just recording and stuff like that. And honestly, guys, we didn't fall off, right? Because at the rate at which things were happening, right? And I mean, that's no excuse, but everything you just said, like, it makes sense, you know? Like, it's not just it's fine. People start gratitude jars all the time, but the deliberate documentation of God coming through for you serves as the type of reminder that we need in seasons where it literally looks physically impossible to surrender to his will. So I completely agree with that, in terms of remind yourself of what God has done, and just keep record, So to add to that, I would definitely say in how we can actually stay in alignment with or in surrender to the will of God, is remembering that, if the Lord is leading you to to do something, right? If the Lord nudging you to say, hey, all right, cool, do this, right? Think of who God is, right? God is not man. God is not me. God is not you. God, right? We cannot see 100 steps down the line in terms of this life, in terms of the seasons and the cycles and stuff like that. We serve the all-knowing, all-powerful, ever-present God who knows all things and stuff like that, and literally is the God of resources and the God of everything. And so if it is that he's saying, yo, make this investment, if it is that he's saying, yo, do this and whatever, there must be, it must be that he knows the outcome. It must be that he knows where he's leading you, and the fact that once you sow in that specific way, certain things will then be like a ripple effect thereafter. So having that level of trust, not only in what he has done, but his nature as God, also can help in keeping us in a place of, yo, all right, cool, even though I'm not seeing it and stuff, let me do this. And the truth is, last year especially, he showed us that thing, like, enough of the time when we made some interesting investments last year and stuff, and we never necessarily saw the next step and thing, and the Lord really blew our minds in certain ways and stuff. So I would definitely say, like, just remember who God is, and his overall nature, and allow that to give you assurance, and to help you to trust that he knows where he's leading you, even when you see that it is physically impossible.
Yeah, you're right. And I think I want to add, like, it was the third thing. Would be surround yourself with people who have had experience in trusting God. Who have had experience with surrendering to God. Because people, if you know somebody who's been through car accident, if you've been through a car accident and you know someone who's been through a car accident, it helps to know that somebody can speak to relate to something that you've been through as well. It does. It's not somebody who's just like
talking
trying, or them trying to find words to say. It helps when somebody has gone through a situation where they would have similar, it's a like complete similar situation. So even surrendering to that, there are a lot of people who would have done that. Some stories are great and wondrous. Some are just like, yo, I just decided that I'm gonna do this today, and it turned out this way. It wasn't great and wondrous, but the truth is, some of the times we're looking for these great and marvelous and miraculous outcomes,
huge things,
and really and truly, sometimes I've seen where some of the things, the outcomes of a lot of things are gonna just be personal to you. It may not be anything
to others. It might not be monumental.
It may not be a monumental thing, but it's gonna be something great to you. So it's gonna be something great that I decided I would surrender what I say to the Lord. I decided I was gonna surrender how I say things, and I saw how my conversation started to turn around, and nobody else would have had to know. Nobody else may see it, nobody else may acknowledge it, but you realize, like, there is something different about how I talk, or what I'm saying, or what I'm doing. There's something that has truly changed, and sometimes people only see that change in a big moment or in a certain moment, because now that it has been happening over time, it's now coming out. It's now taking on a much more physical thing, and it definitely helps when you have people who can be there with you. It's like, as I said, physically doing something, you need somebody who can help you up and be like, yo, keep on doing it.
So I actually want to tack on to that, because there's a flip side to that we need to be careful of, right? Which by the way, I agree with the point, right? But the flip side to that is that because we surround ourselves with persons who have gone through it and have trusted the Lord and stuff like that, you raised a valid point a while ago in terms of, some of the things that's going to be personal to you, right? So the truth is that as much as these persons can relate on a general perspective, and some of the situations might be very similar and stuff, the truth is you need to be so validated in yourself, especially for those personal ones, so that even if those persons don't necessarily see how monumental those things are to you, you are not necessarily then downplaying how much God has come through for you in that specific moment or in that milestone or whatever. Because the truth is that, when you start surrounding yourselves with persons, and you expect like a certain reaction, or, you expect the overall celebration, and those people don't really get it as much as like you expected them to, like what happens then? Like, so it's about balancing too how much you are expecting them to, completely understand your full journey and stuff, and just at least allowing them to share on the path with you, and them allowing you to share on their path as well, and still you just finding that security and that validation in terms of what the Lord is doing in your life. So I really wanted to say that, because there are a lot of persons who, like, I really wish I could find another movie for this. But all right, let's speak generally. Those movies where there's a clique or the cheerleaders and stuff like that, and so you're a part of the cool crowd because like you can you're all relating, like you're all of y'all are cheerleaders and stuff like that. But the truth is, then one of the cheerleaders ends up being like this brilliant person who, happens to get accepted to Harvard and all of these universities and whatever, and some of them aren't, right? Like, that's a monumental personal thing for you. But then because the rest of them can't fully relate, even though generally they relate to you and whatever, it's almost like you then begin to question like, okay, cool, how should I really feel about this, or kind of a thing. And it's weird because, getting into Harvard is amazing, but then sometimes we become so dependent on the reactions of other persons that are journeying in the same faith journey that we forget that, sometimes God is doing things personally for us, and that has to be enough. Yeah. And we need to find validation enough in that. So I just really wanted to start that on as well.
Yeah, man, that's fine. That's good. That's that's true for it. At the end of the day, it's just, as I said, it's really just support.
Yeah.
It's not a full-on dependency. It's really just you're seeking support, because at the end of the day, it's good to surround yourself with like-minded people. And it's definitely good to not try to live this work, or go through these different things alone.
Yeah.
Where you can find company, where you can find tribe, where you can find community.
Yeah.
Find it so that it can encourage you to continue the journey and continue the walk
in surrender.
So I think
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think the final thing is just like, we can control the outcome, but let us. I encourage you to trust that He is working all things out for our good. I encourage you to know. Just remember what He's already brought you through. And so in this moment where He's asking you, or He's requesting that you sacrifice something, that you surrender something to Him, that you might feel like you felt so dear, so you're not even sure of, but what just clicked to me is like, there are certain things that are so entwined, so entangled in people's identity, that to let it go, to surrender it to Him, to surrender the anger, to surrender the hurt, to surrender the control. It's so hard to do, because without it, you may not know who you are. You may not know what you will be or who you will be after this. But just know that whatever it is that He's asking you to surrender, there is good that will come from it. Will it come in the next hour?
Yeah.
Will it come tomorrow?
Or even for the rest of the year?
For the rest of the year? Can't tell you. We don't know. But we know what we do know is that he's no man's debtor, and he will whatever he's doing is for your good. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, I have nothing else to add to that. That was a very solid final point. So saying that to say, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Purpose Audacity. We hope that you were encouraged. We're not just talking off our head, like we have been through the mill, and that's a very purpose of Purpose Audacity, where we really just want to make sure that that there are very real things that happen on this purpose journey and this faith journey and this expression journey, and make we talk about it so that we can all be encouraged to keep going and walking in surrender to God's will no matter what. So that said, thanks again, and we will see you soon. Bye.